call the December meeting of the District 518 School Board to order. Roll call is let the record reflect all members are present except Tom Prinz. Recognition of visitors and guests, we welcome all of you here this evening. 1.3 Pledge of Allegiance. We stand to the pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 1.4 Correspondence and recognition. Public participation. We had a request from Lucy O'Donnell to address the board. Is she here? Okay, you can come forward.
Good evening. Esteemed school board members, I'm speaking to you today to express my concern about the proposed schedule change and the effect it will have on our student body, more specifically on the students involved in music and multiple extracurricular activities. My name is Lucy O'Donnell, and I'm a senior here at WHS. Even though I will not be affected by this change, I will not stand by and allow my peers to be affected by it. The music programs have changed my life. I am one of 4 commanders for the marching band, the choir president, and a senior member of our orchestra. Our district website says this about the impact music has on students. Quote, the confidence gained in performance ensembles, complements student leadership and academic achievement at WHS, end quote. Not only does participation in music affect the emotional learning of a student, but also, as stated by our district, affects their leadership and academic achievement. Therefore, by using district-stated information, one would come to the conclusion that by cutting back on music programs, which seems inevitable with the changed schedule, a student's academic success would be strongly affected. Furthering the discussion on academic risks imposed by this schedule, I would like to share why I find the current schedule beneficial. The current block schedule gives students in regular classes adequate time to work on homework while in the presence of a teacher who can give them active response to their questions and to their schoolwork. I have appreciated the amount of work time in class because it means my workload doesn't pile up outside of the classroom. The 30-minute advisory period at the end of the school day is also beneficial in this respect. Advisory is a set-aside time for students to work on homework, to make up tests, and to spend time with peers and their advisors. Advisory has been very beneficial to me in many times because of the chance to catch up on assignments and tests that I had missed when being sick or when out of the classroom for other activities. Advisory is also a time for students to create strong connections with their advisory teachers. An advisor can provide support and encouragement in meaningful ways that most students would not have been able to achieve otherwise. Because of the block schedule and advisory period, I and other students have been able to give time to work schedules. The shortened periods in the new schedule would reduce a student's availability to work, and because of the class day's later end time, athletes would be forced to stay later for practices, leaving less time for homework and less time for working a job. Yes, the proposed schedule change will affect students and activities, but it will also significantly impact the students who are the primary care for their siblings or students who work to support their families. In conclusion, I'm speaking to you today because I want you all to know that if this schedule is implemented, this choice will affect teachers, it will affect Worthington's historically successful programs, and it will affect students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lucy, for your concerns. 1.4.2 is recognition of student, staff, and community, and Aaron will address that.
All right, I want to just make some remarks regarding upcoming retirements. Tonight marks the last school board meeting for 3 of our school board members, which also marks the retirement of some key District 518 school staff that we want to thank in appreciation and to recognize and honor as well. These are so the following comments were submitted by the district administration. First of all, we'll recognize our 3 school board members who are leaving the board at the end of this year. Tom Prinz, he served on 1 term on the school board. We thank Tom for stepping up to serve our community, providing a listening ear and providing an important agribusiness perspective to the board. Steve Schneider. Steve has been on the District 518 School Board for over 27 years. Our district has had the advantage of having Steve be part of some integral committees and organizations during his tenure. Nobles County Integration Collaborative, Joint Powers Board of Worthington TV3, Southwest West Central Service Cooperative, and the Southwest Regional Development Commission. Joel Lorenz, our chair. Joel has been on the District 518 School Board for over 30 years. He has been a key leader as a school board member that started his tenure in making many budget cuts for staff and programs when he first started, to now having positive cash reserves. His economic background in agribusiness has brought a level-headed perspective to many discussions. So, thank you, school board members. Let's give them a round of applause. Furthermore, 2 members of the school district leadership team will be retiring at the end of this month. Dave Skog, Director of Operations, has been with the district since 1997. Dave's responsibilities have changed, maintained, and built the many different facilities that have been and are a part of the district over 27 years. Patrick Morphew, District Accountant, has been with the district since 1993. In his over 31 years, the changes in computers, technology, and recording business transactions have been dramatically adjusted from many pieces of paper to online, from mailed to uploaded. So thank you, Dave and Pat, for your service. And they're not here tonight, but let's give them a round of applause. Thank you all who we have recognized for your hard work and dedication with a collective service of 119 years to our district, students, families, and the communities that are part of the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Okay, we're going to 1.4.3, presentation on the high school by Tony Hastings, our principal. Tony.
Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge Mr. Schneider, Mr. Lorenz, and Mr. Prinz, who I wish was here. Just thank you for all your hard work and dedication and support over the years. You have made a difference in the lives of students here. It is fitting that I follow Lucy O'Donnell for this presentation. I know when I presented to instructional committee a couple months ago, there was some hubbub about the possible new schedule. I know some school board members got some feedback on that. So the one thing that I want to present to you, I think everyone has a copy of it, and this is just to project it, is the timeline for kind of revisiting the high school schedule. What I would propose is that we, for next school year, kind of hold tight to what we have, or very similar to what we have this year, and then kind of go through the timeline of what we want to do to possibly have a change for the following school year. So this is kind of a general timeline, and then on the back it has a bit more detailed description of what we're looking at doing. In the winter of 25, so nowish, I've had conversations with my leadership team, and the next step I'd like to do is work with our different departments and staff within the building, and then in January, February, create a committee consisting of students, parents, staff, and administration. And then again, I'd like to gather some data from the teachers that have taught. We have, during our second block, we've created skinnies to see how purposeful they have been, and see if there has been benefits to having that second block skinny. In the spring, create a survey for our stakeholders. Again, it would be sent to our students, our parents, and building staff, and then do some more research and development of our schedule by looking at other school districts that are similar to us in size and demographics, just see what other schools are doing when it comes to their schedule. I've done a little bit of this research, and there are a variety of different schedules, whether it's period day, block schedule, hybrids of those. So again, just doing more research and looking at what is best practice out there when it comes to scheduling. In the summer, committee makes determination of the scheduling needs. Again, influences by our stakeholder input, our research, just gathering of data, and then we begin to develop a draft schedule. Again, this process does take quite some time. Fall, again, coming together, gathering stakeholder feedback, and starting to do a draft schedule with obviously revisions to come, and again, looking at what our stakeholders are asking from us as well. The winter of next year, identify some of the curriculum needs. If we would switch from a period or from a block schedule to a period schedule, just what are the needs going to be for our staff, especially our teacher staff, when they shift from a longer period of time teaching the different classes. So identifying those needs, and again, just determining upon what direction we go, if there is additional time for summer curriculum writing. In January, I would present the daily schedule to our instructional committee for approval. Spring is registration, so again, getting students registered for that following year. And then again, creating a master schedule. This would be our daily schedule, and then our master schedule is the big grid with all of our classes, with all of our kids that would fall into it. Again, I think a revision and continually tweaking that master schedule, that's something that I work on all year long, from when we do registration in the spring up until probably fourth quarter is when I continue to work on the master schedule so we can fit in and meet the needs of all of our students. And again, continuous development of our schedule, curriculum writing for staff, and then in the fall of 2026, the implementation of the schedule. And again, continuous conversation with students, parents, and staff about the how well it is working for our student body. So that is what I'm proposing. That's what I'm looking at doing. So we have more input from our students and our staff and our stakeholders in the creation of a new schedule. Obviously, we have students that are passionate about of the things that we offer here. But again, re-examining what we're doing and see if we can do better. Questions?
Mr. Hastings, how many skinnies do we have in the schedule now? Is it just one during that second block?
Second block, we have, it's split in half, and we have like 6, and it's been freshman classes from geography, geometry, earth and space. There's an art class that's in there, a music class that's in there as well. So we've split that. So it has been typically it's been some of our freshman classes, our intro classes right there. And that's where I want to gather data, get input from the teachers to see if that has made a change, because it will be over a longer period of time to see if we see a reduction in failure and increase in scores.
Thank you.
Mr. Hastings, how will the committee be formed? The committee that you mentioned for winter of 2025, made up of staff and parents and teachers and administration?
Yeah, good question. I would like to, obviously, email to the staff would be one thing, and then obviously I'd like to have a connection with the students, and then reaching out through probably our talking points to get some parent involvement as well. I think a lot of times we skip that component, so I think that's an important piece, and having diversity within that group as well too is something that I'm looking for. So just kind of reaching out, making sure people are aware of it, getting it on social media, because I know Ann Foley could assist me with that. Just getting the word out that we are forming this committee and having a variety of stakeholders be a part of it.
How large of a committee do you anticipate forming?
I would say 7 to 10 members. You get too big and then you just kind of don't move forward because everyone will have their opinions. So I think 7 to 10 members. Obviously, I'd like to have students involved in it as well. I'd love to have Lucy on it, but Lucy is going to graduate and move on from us. But again, student representation is something that I would like to have. Probably students that are juniors this year, possibly sophomores, just so they can have some insight and input on what works well and what doesn't work well, and how can we improve what we deliver to our students.
Steve?
Have you identified the goals or the impacts you're trying to accomplish by readjusting the schedule? Such as, is there a goal to improve grades, or a goal to provide more access to more variety of classes at the same time? What are you trying to accomplish by reorganizing and redoing this? What are the primary factors you're going to try and address or fix that would take place by changing the schedule?
Obviously, we're always having the student need this first, and I think one of the things that we wrestle with as leaders in the district too is staffing. So how can we appropriately staff the different classes as well? So I think there's a lot of factors that can go into schedules. I think some classes could be longer. Like a number of our ag classes that we have, some of our science classes that have labs, I think it's appropriate to have longer periods of time. Where we could possibly look at some of our math classes so we can have consistency throughout an entire year, and they could be shorter periods of time, but we have a longer duration. But I think just looking at it right now, a combination of period and block would be probably a best combination for us. And again, I want to make sure I get feedback from others as well, not just me making this decision. But I think some of our classes fit more of that block model where we need a longer period of time, like a welding class. You're really not going to get much done in a 45, 50-minute period, where in a 90-minute block you can get some stuff done. Art classes typically need a longer period of time. I also agree what Lucy was saying when it comes to having that teacher within that classroom. A lot of our students are extremely busy, or they don't necessarily have support, so they have that built-in study hall or that support time within a block class, where a period day, you typically would not have that. And then that would be the possibility of us looking at, do we have study halls back in our day? Because we don't have study halls built in, because it just doesn't fit a block schedule. But if we would go to a period, a built-in study hall might be something that we'd need to look at, just because, again, fitting the needs of our students.
So would this committee then be the one that decides prioritization of what's important and what's less important as you start running into conflicts with how everything fits together? Obviously, if you want students doing their homework in school so they can have jobs or participate in after-school activities, and then that bumps up against some other priority that you need to do, who's going to be setting those priorities and saying this is more important than this is, and we can do this, but we're not going to be able to do that? Is that this committee that you're forming?
I think the committee could be a strong voice in that as well, too. Obviously, as leaders, we have to make final decisions, but again, I would like to have a great amount of input on what priorities do we have, what is going to be best for students. And again, that's where student voice can come in, because I think a lot of times we move forward without having that voice. And like Lucy said, she has a lot of key points that sometimes we overlook, and that's what we can incorporate into that schedule for the future as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any more questions for Tony? Hearing none. Thank you, Tony.
Thank
for
you
the
so much.
presentation.
Not only is Lucy a great speaker, but she's an awesome actress as well. So thank you.
Okay, 1.44, presentation on the Ag Learning Lab by the high school Ag Department.
When he's getting that set up, I'll introduce us. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm Brett Schmidt. We have Deb Martin here, Matt Tripp, Katie Christopher, and a student, Autumn Lunenberg. So we're going to talk about the Land Lab. And first thing with the Land Lab, we were very fortunate to have a lot of great partnerships. You can see the partnerships on the board. Minnesota West, Titan Machinery, Wiffles, Wiffles Hybrid Seed, Pioneer Seed, and Compeer Financial. So they all help make it a successful year, and we are looking forward to the possibility of more partnerships in the future. So far, 260 middle school and high school students have been to the Land Lab, and we expect those numbers to go up in the future. That's on the next slide here. There's been a number of classes that have visited, as you can see on the slide. This past year, 260 students made the trip. Spring of 25, we'll have another 70+ students make the trip there. So our total number of high school students so far, 90, middle school students, 94, middle school from the spring, 76, and we're expecting 70 more students this spring.
Hi, I'm Autumn Lunenberg, and I'm going to be talking about what I learned in the class from the Land Lab. So we're going to go over some pre-planting. So Ben Crone from Compeer Financial came in and talked about crop insurance, which was really important this spring because we had a wet spring. So a lot of farmers had to turn in their fields to crop insurance. And then we talked about fertilizer Rex with Minnesota West and the high schoolers, and we had two great ag professors come in from Minnesota West, Jeff Rogers and Dusty Neugebauer. And then they taught their Minnesota West students some stuff about fertilizer and all the nutrients that go into it. And then they taught us high schoolers, and we got to work in small groups and just base off knowledge from each other. And then next was the field plan proposal. So they sat us down and told us like what will be happening this spring and who will be farming it and the harvesting. And we also got to pick out different varieties of seeds. And we got to look through different books such as Pioneer and Wiffle books and pick out the variety of seed that best fits the crops, since we broke up the land into 40 acres on beans and 40 acres on corn. So we just had to figure out which seed would be best for each crop. And then the next slide is going to be a picture of spring planting and tillage. So Dusty Neugebauer is pictured here, and they brought in two planters, and they showed us students the difference of two different types of planters. I think there's an old planter and a 32-row planter. And then we have Titan Machinery down there, Malik Sampson, and he showed us the digger, the field cultivator, and the maintenance that goes in with having machinery. And then here are just some other pictures too, and you can see the Minnesota West kids and the high school kids together, and we're all basing knowledge off each other within agriculture because we all have different experiences.
So I think one of the coolest parts about this project has been getting to take students like Autumn, who I think hopes to go back to the farm and brings a wealth of knowledge, and then also getting to bring some of our younger students like 7th and 8th graders out. So on the planting day, I was able to walk over with some of our students. They got to ride in a tractor for the first time, some of them. So that was just us coming over on planting day with some middle school students.
And then next I'm going to talk about our partnership with Wiffles, and that includes Randy Michelson. So Randy and an intern came to our Ag 11 and 12 classes, and they talked about, it was actually a wet day, believe it or not, in the spring. And so then they brought in samples from the field, and we got to test like the corn emergence and the vegetative and growth stages between different types of crops. So that was really fun that all of our class got to participate in.
Again, brought middle school students. We dug up some of the plants, played in the soil. We're able to look at roots, and then trying to find some seeds that hadn't emerged, what happened to them. Then we came back out, so that kind of summed up our spring. Came back out in the fall. One of the things that we got to do was do a yield estimate lab. Our Agriculture Exploration 9 class went out with the Minnesota West students, broke them up into small groups. They were able to go through actual yield estimates and work in kind of teams throughout the field to get them of both corn and soybeans. And just some more pictures of them. Then on Harvest Day, again, able to bring a variety of classes out from landscape and design and Ag 10 to, again, some of our middle school students, ride in a combine, and just be able to see that process. And again, talking through the combine, and then we had Ag 10 out there as well.
All right, so on this slide then is how everything kind of penciled out for us this year. So this is our profit loss statement on the 2024 growing season. We had 32 acres of corn planted and 38 acres was planted to soybeans. Our average yield on corn was 148 bushels per acre, with soybeans coming in at 38 bushels an acre. A couple things to note on here is, again, the seed. So Wiffles donated 9 bags of seed corn, and then we purchased the remaining 6 bags. We needed 15 total bags. And then Pioneer donated all the seed beans and the treatment that went with that. So at the end of the, again, and then due to the less than favorable growing season, so we started off really wet, and then we ended up really dry. So we did claim, put in for a crop insurance claim, which is calculated on there. So all said and done, our net return on corn was $7,507, and soybeans was $10,894. So.
And looking ahead towards the future, we hope to bring out some more classes to the Land Lab, the gardening and the concurrent college horticulture class. Now that we've seen and done some of the labs and learning, we hope to align some of our curriculum to mirror and build on the learning that is happening out in the field. Thanks.
Ask a clarifying question.
Yeah.
Was it 260 students, like, unduplicated?
Unduplicated.
Like if I'm taking a couple different ag classes, I've
Yep.
never gone with your class and someone else's, but was it a total of 260?
Yeah, there could be like a handful of middle school students that had me in 7th grade spring and 8th grade fall, but otherwise unduplicated of, yeah.
Either way, it's a really large group of kids. I think that's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
I'm just curious,
Yeah.
how did they do in estimating? Did they come out pretty close, or did you have like different groups doing it, and did any group do better than the other, obviously?
Yeah, some did better than others on estimating. Were you one of the ones that did?
So when we did the estimation that day, so the corn estimation, yield estimation was done when we were out there for soybean harvest. It was not as accurate because it was more of going through the process than actually doing it correctly. So, we just went on the end row right there. It's not like we've went to different sections of the field, so whatever that section of the field yielded was probably pretty accurate, but we had some drowned out spots and some spots that didn't do as well, so.
Yeah.
And one other question then, they made a profit, but we had some donations and stuff, did you calculate out how we would have done if we had put all our own costs in and stuff? Would they have broken even then at that point, do you think, or is it for them to make this a profitable program, to make a profit of it, that they'll probably still need to have some input from donations and things to make this break even or be a profitable venture?
Yeah, so we haven't gone and done the, like, putting in what it would have cost had we purchased everything. I think that's a hope of ours, so that we can go through that with our classes this spring, when we have Ag 12 and Ag 11. But haven't gotten to that. This was also kind of a hard year because of the wet planting season. So hard to exactly say, but yeah.
Okay, any more questions for the Ag Department? Sounds like a good learning experience for kids.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, moving on to approval of the agendas. 2.1 and 2.2, we need to make a change on the main agenda on 5.8. Change the wording to change to option C. And with that change, we can approve the agendas.
I move approval of both the consent and main agenda.
Second?
Motion by Lori, second by Matt to approve the agendas as presented with the change. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 3.0, approval of minutes.
I move approval of 3.1 and 3.2 minutes.
A motion by
Second.
Adam, second by Steve to approve the minutes, 3.1 and 3.2. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 4.0, approve the items on the consent agenda.
I move approval of a consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Adam, second by Lori to approve the items on the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.0 main agenda, 5.1 monthly financial overview. John?
Yeah, so when you look at the monthly financial overview, you will see that currently, right now, we received 36.59% of our revenue compared to prior year at just under 30%. So it's a little bit of timing that we're getting more of our revenue at this point. As far as moving to the expenditure side, you'll see also our expenditures are a little higher compared to last year. Some of that is due to increased costs. And again, we're in line with the budget. Everything seems to be flowing correctly for this part of the year, and we're halfway through the year, so it seems to be working out well.
Okay, any questions for John? Hearing none, we'll move on to 5.2, presentation on district fiscal model by Mike Holmes.
And he's not here, he can't be here, so we'll have to move that to another month.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will pass on that. 5.3, approve marching band equipment sale.
There's surplus property, and that was, oh boy, Mr. Noble, you gotta help me. Do you remember?
Drums, 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 and drums. Stands, harnesses, cases.
Yeah.
6 of each.
Drums that were replaced a year ago. So they're excess, we need to declare them surplus so we can get rid of them.
So move approval to declare surplus property.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to approve marching band equipment as surplus property. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.4, approve resolution directing the reallocation of general education revenue.
This is an annual resolution, and it starts it moves money from what I'll call the per pupil funding to cover other costs within the district. That's not part of what I'll call the instructional side or building costs. So.
I move approval of the resolution.
Motion by Lori,
Second?
second by Adam. Any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote.
Ms. Dudley.
Aye.
Mr. Lorenz.
Aye.
Ms. Shute.
Aye.
Mr. Bloom.
Aye.
Mr. Schneider.
Aye.
Mr. Widboom.
Aye.
Resolution passes. 5.5, approve resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for possible reductions.
Again, it's an annual resolution that's done, and it has the administration look at budgets and where potential reductions could occur. And it's part of the process that needs to start. There'll be another one that will come up later in case there needs to be more major reductions.
Okay, we need a motion.
So move, Steve.
Motion by Steve,
Second?
Second by Adam to approve the resolution directing administration to make possible reductions. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Resolution, right.
Ms. Dudley.
Aye.
Mr. Lorenz.
Aye.
Ms. Shooty.
Aye.
Mr. Bloom.
Aye.
Mr. Schneider.
Aye.
Mr. Whitbo.
Aye.
Resolution passes. 5.6, approve the 2025 legislative priorities.
The legislative priorities are something that we've done for probably 15 years. There were minor changes in the education funding one, which I believe was bullet 3 or 4, or both of them, actually. So with that, the recommendation was for approval of these priorities.
Move to approve legislative platform for 2025.
I'll second.
Matt, second by Lori to approve the legislative priorities as listed. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.7, consideration approval of 24 levy payable in 25.
We had the tax hearing this evening, and you will see the pay 24 levy payable 25 in the amount of $9,336,489.45. And the recommendation would be for approval.
What percentage increase is that, John?
5.6, well, it said on the hearing, but they told me 5.68%.
I move approval for setting the budget, the levy, I mean.
Motion by Steve,
Second?
second by Matt. To approve the levy payable in 2025 and as the amount listed, 5.68% increase. Any discussion?
Wasn't, it's supposed to kind of keep stabilizing as we go on, correct? We're not,
Pardon me?
wasn't it supposed to keep stabilizing just a little more? Because we've seen some pretty big increases there for a few years, correct? So are we starting to,
Well, part of the increase is due to the enrollment increase. And that's where the biggest lion's share of it is. We saw increased enrollment, so the levy goes up. But yes, there should be some stabilization coming.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.8, approve 25-26 school calendar, option C, and the Vibe calendar.
So the calendars that were presented are the calendars. We talked about option B, but there was an error found in there. There was an extra, actually, teacher workday, and by contract, so it showed 187. It should have been 186. So the real difference was the one in-service day in September. That was removed. That's why option C was very similar. And based on the feedback, option C was more of the favorite. And Vibe would follow a very similar. There's some differences in that, just due to the nature of how they function. And then community ed, the preschool, would follow close to option C. Of course, they do have some what I'll call compensation time or a slightly different schedule related to that, but most of the days are the same. So with that, the recommendation is option C.
I move approval of the calendar, option C for Vibe and the preschool and regular school.
A motion by Lori,
Second.
second by Steve to approve the calendar as option C. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.9, accept Prairie Elementary roof replacement bid.
So we opened bids up related to that, and of course, there was the main bid as well as an alternate A and an alternate, or an alternate one and an alternate two. There were two bidders on the roof, and then, if you remember, it's a slightly different system that's part of that. So with that, the base bid came in on the low bidder of $1,138,000. We had budgeted $1 million for that, so it's slightly higher, but pretty close to what was estimated. Well, alternate one came in at $364,000, and alternate two came in at $218,000. So roughly a total of about 1.7 if you were to move forward with the two alternates.
And alternate one and alternate two are planned to be done. It's either we do them now under this contract, or we would be doing them sometime in the future.
So if you look at how the building was phased out, there was a phase one, there would be a phase two, and yes, that would probably be part of phase two, and then there'd be a phase 3 and 4. And you could incorporate a couple of these, either alternate 1 or 2 in some of that phase 2 or 3 and try and get it done quicker. But that's why we bid the alternates, to see if we could get good pricing to be able to do it quicker. Total cost to do the entire building was estimated between 4 to 5 million. And if you figure based on these bids, it'll come in about 4.5 million, depending on inflation costs and other costs down the road.
Mr. Chairman, my main question is, if the intent is to do the entire project, why would we not do the alternates as part of our mobilizing now? That, I guess I would support doing.
It's a matter of how you want to expend those dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
When you do alternate one and, which is Gym A, alternate two kitchen, what % of the entire project is that then? Do we know that? I mean, is it over half of it, or is it?
Well, when you look at the map, it's probably not quite half. It's probably closer to 40% of that, because the remaining portion would be pods 2 and 3. And with that hallway piece of the puzzle, this gets pod 1 and over the main entrance and lobby. If you do alternate 1, which is the gym section, and then alternate 2 was the kitchen section. And if you look at it, so it probably will get close to 40% of the roof in the current, if you did alternates 1 and 2.
Does this complete the rest of the school then? Because we've done some already. Does this complete the school then by doing these at this point, or will there be more to do
No,
on
this
top of
doesn't, this is
It's just the
just
beginning.
starting.
Okay.
It's the beginning. So you're either gonna break it into, potentially, we planned 4 phases to do the entire building. This is phase 1 of 2 or 3 or 4. Phase 1 of 3 or 4, depending on how much you do.
And the estimate of cost saving if we do it now compared to waiting and doing these other alternates next year, or, the following year, is there do we have any idea what the cost would be, or what the added cost would be, as we're talking about a 5% increase? Do we get pretty good bids on this, what it's worth pursuing it, or is it, or would we see just a cost of living increase if we simply waited till next year?
I don't know if you go by what ICS shared when you had the conversation on the high school, they said potentially a 4% increase. And that's the number that stuck with me. That's the best I can give you.
And based on that, that's why I would support we do the entire project now, with the alternates, just based on, we continuously are hearing the only thing that will happen, it'll cost more. So I guess that's where my approach is, let's do and then that's why we asked for additional alternatives to see what kind of price it would be, so.
This is long-term facilities maintenance dollars, some of it,
Some of it, yep.
which has been specified for maintenance.
Yeah.
And the budget would handle it all right?
Well, we budgeted, $1 million. We could we could do the base bid. We did not plan for the increased additional $500,000 or slightly more. So that's something that we could cover it, whether it's assigned or it's in the, long-term facility maintenance dollars, LTFM. We can cover it. It's just how you go about wisely spending the dollars.
I think we had this conversation in the operations committee a few months ago, and we talked about that there would be trade-offs if we did the whole roof at once. And I don't know if those trade-offs or those calculations have changed in the 2 or 3 months that we discussed this at the operations committee. But Mr. Landgard, do you have thoughts on what those trade-offs would be if we, what wouldn't we be doing if we did this roof instead?
Well, it depends on what you do the rest of the evening related to potential high school project, or if you're going to do something with the middle school, or it depends on what you want to do. And again, we can manage the budget. It just might be, in the end, the fund balance at the end might not be $13.5 million. It might be $12 million. Because there's a certain amount we try and invest and use. The policy says we use the most restrictive dollars first, which is those dollars that are in long-term facility maintenance, capital reserves, or those type of dollars. So we'll take a look at it. Can we cover the overall cost? Yeah, you have money to be able to do that.
I guess maybe the question would be is if we have some limitation on what we have available in long-term facility maintenance, and obviously we get more the following year, does that mean that we are using other dollars besides the long-term facility maintenance that we could use if we waited another year?
Well, there's those dollars in the reserve account right now. That's why we set it at $1 million. It's a little higher in that reserve account, so you're probably spending down the reserve dollars and then having to look, it might be a little bit of the capital reserve dollars to cover the entire amount.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, it's are we planning on moving all of it forward by a year, or are we just talking about doing more of it now and then we would do nothing the following year and then we pick it up again? Are we just combining 2 years or whatever to do it all at one time, and then you have it done, you save some money that way, and then you don't do anything the following year when you would have done it, and then the following year after that you pick it up again and do it again? Or are you just sliding it all forward by a year, moving everything up a year? It's a little bit different how the cash flows.
Yeah, it'll be how the cash flows, the dollars that are available based in our account. And are we moving ahead? Yeah, you'd be moving it ahead.
Well, I think it'd be good to do, we could always determine if we get to the following year whether or not we should move one up another year and do it, or move it back or leave it as it was. It depends on how the cash is flowing at that point. You don't really take any risk. You just, you could move it ahead if you haven't, and you could leave it as it is, as it's currently planned, and skip a year if you have to. You're not really hurting yourself at all. I agree with Matt. The more you can get done sooner, the better off it is. You have the money, get it done. The longer you wait, it's just going to cost you that much more. And if we can adjust the scheduling in the future, you always have the chance of moving things ahead or back a little bit if you need to balance out the funding. I would make a motion that we go ahead with the base bid and the two alternatives.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to move ahead with the base bid and both alternates. That's what I'm hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.10, accept transportation bid.
So we opened transportation bids last week, and we had one proposal from Bud's Bus Service. And I appreciate Darren and Darla being here, because if I goof this up, they can help answer questions. Base bid for this is $1,472,319.20. That is a 15% increase from last year. And then it's a 5% for the next 2 years. And we talked about a 3-year, and we'll finish figuring that out. We asked them to go back and look at a 2+2 or a 3+1. I think it's 3+1 is what they were interested in doing, which would be an additional 4th year. You can go up to the 4 years before we bid. When we met with Bud's Bus, part of the rationale or the big percentage increase is the insurance that has gone up. Plus they have 7 buses when they originally started 15 years ago. Is that right? Yeah, 15 years ago as doing that. They got all the buses at one time, so now there's 7 of them they're looking to replace, and bus costs have gone up almost double for replacing them. And then, of course, there's an increase in service and parts, and maybe a slight increase on the unemployment side. And again, there's just some of those operational costs that have driven the increase, as how our conversation went. So with that, I guess in our conversation, I would recommend you approve the contract to go to Bud's Bus Service, and we'll finalize the number of years with them.
I move approval of the transportation bid from Bud's Bus Service.
Second, Steve.
Motion by Adam, second by Steve to approve the bid with Bud's Bus Company.
Well, just go. What would be the, we have had no conversation with them on a 4th year at this point, or they've made a proposal for a 4th year?
No, we don't have one yet. We'd like to do a 4th year probably, but we got to work on that one. But we're fine with the 3-year proposal too. Got to have bus service.
So the motion doesn't exclude the option to extend for the 4th year, or it does?
Adam made the motion.
For the extra, the 4-year? Yeah, that's with the additional 4th year in there.
But that would be worked out between the administration and the bus service.
Yep.
So it wouldn't come back to the
Okay.
board then. Okay?
That's what I
the
thought I was
motion.
seconding. I just want to make sure.
What's that?
That's what I thought I seconded. I just
Yeah,
wanted to
okay.
make sure.
Yeah, so it's 3 years with the option for the 4th year to be worked out. Any discussion? Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.11, approve student expulsion.
You have student expulsion in front of you, and it's related to violation of district policy, whether it's behavior or ethics, and the fact that it was an immediate dangerous situation. So everything's signed, everything's taken care of. Please remember that you must turn in the paperwork back to Lisa after the board meeting.
I move approval of the student expulsion.
Motion by Adam,
Second?
Second by Matt to approve the student expulsion. Roll call vote.
Ms. Dudley?
Aye.
Mr. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Shooty?
Abstain.
Mr. Bloom?
Aye.
Mr. Schneeder?
Aye.
Mr. Woodboom?
Aye.
Resolution passes. 5.12, approve student teaching agreement.
The student teaching agreement would be for field experience with, agreement with Faith Baptist College, just like all the other ones. So recommendation is for approval.
Move to approve a student teaching agreement with Faith Baptist Bible College.
Second.
Motion by Matt, second by Lloyd to approve the teacher's agreement with Faith Baptist Bible College. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.13, approve salary and benefits contract with the Human Resources Director.
Can we, obviously, we got 3 of them in a row. Can we just look at bundling them? I mean, is there, we know what they are. Let's bundle the 5.13, 5.14, and 5.15 together.
Ken, is that your motion?
Well, that would be my motion to,
Approve all 3 of them?
yeah, but I've also got some discussion and myself. By doing this, we have, and I'm not saying nobody is deserving of this by any means, but how are we gonna handle the other areas that have taken on an additional workload? Because this isn't just it. And I know we've got other areas that were short-staffed and have taken on a workload and aren't getting extra pay. So what are we opening up here by doing this for a select few in the administration, but not giving it to the other people that are doing it as well? Is my concern.
So, do we have a motion and a second? We probably should have it before we do
He made the
discussion.
motion.
There's no
Motion?
second.
No second.
I'll second it, so we can get the discussion going.
Motion made and seconded to approve 5.13, 5.14, and 5.15. Okay, now it's open for discussion.
Well, as I look at 5.13 and 5.14, the human resource director and the assistant superintendent, those are new positions. So the job points, we changed those, and these are new positions, and the salaries that go with them are in line with what those positions are. And then the third is a stipend. It's not a salary increase, it's a stipend, so.
But are we gonna be open to, if we have additional people that come forward after this, saying, hey, I got additional workload, what about what I'm doing? Are we going to be looking at doing something? And how much are we gonna be looking at doing? Because I do think you're gonna have that coming forward.
And I think we have that at every negotiation session, if it's with the union, or if it's an individual contract. We talk about those things in the negotiations process every time we negotiate.
Chair? Yeah, I think, like I say, in the contract part of it, I think to be negotiated out in contract, or we get a memorandum of understanding. I think for those teachers and things, there's overloads, there's compensation when they use their prep time and things like that. So we do have those types of things in place, I think, with a lot of different union positions. So I think it's oftentimes covered, but I think if we have someone who is doing extra work and it's not being covered, I'm sure that there's gonna be a request for them to be compensated, or at least to be considered. So I think it's gonna happen. I think it's been happening, and we've been addressing it in different fashions. So I don't think it's gonna be any change as we go forward. I think we're gonna continue to have, we have them now, and I think it's gonna continue, and when we find those inequities, it's gonna be brought to us, and the requests are gonna be made, so I don't think it's gonna change.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. I understand that these 3 positions are gonna cover the one position. And it shouldn't really go any further than that at this time as far as extra workload for anybody else, as far as I have been told, so. Down the road, if it does, you're gonna have to address it, so. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.16, approve University of Minnesota gardening plot agreement.
This is an agreement that comes from the University of Minnesota for the garden plot. Last summer, they did not get the garden going out at the Krausheim site or the intermediate school. This agreement is really an agreement that will help hopefully get that going for them, and they'll be able to have the garden plot out there this coming summer. So recommendation was for approval.
Move to approve the U of M gardening plot agreement.
Second.
Motion by Matt, second by Lori to approve the gardening plot agreement. University of Minnesota. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, Mr. Landgard, this is a one-year agreement?
Yes.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Location, did we come up with a suitable place to locate that plot where it's not going to interfere with other projects or programs we might have going on? And obviously, we don't want to get too close to the field, because if they're spraying out there, then we don't want it drifting over into the gardens. I mean, do we have a good location for them to do that's going to be workable?
It's between the current storage building out there and the pond.
Okay.
So on the east side of the pond. So farming or the egg land lab should not have overflow.
Will there be water available then? I'm assuming somewhere where there'd be water.
pond.
available to water the gar- For the pond, they'll pump it out of there then?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.17, approve the 25-26 budget calendar and assumptions.
So the budget calendar and assumption, that's something that's gone on well past my time, I believe, and it's laid out consistent with last year. Numbers were all updated. It was presented to the operations committee, and the recommendation was for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Adam,
I'll second, Steve.
second by Steve. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.18, authorize school district to purchase special education and maintenance vehicles.
So the board, a number of months ago, gave Mr. Skog the approval to purchase vehicles for the special education and maintenance vehicles. And of course, Mr. Skog is retiring, so coming back and asking for authority to be able to purchase special ed. We have a couple that probably need to be replaced in the near future, as well as a couple pickups for the maintenance folks.
Mr. Chair, so what I understand is this has already been approved, but we actually named a specific person who had the authority to do it. We're just giving another person the authority, or another part of the organization an authority to do that. I'd move that we give approval to the school administration to make the purchases.
I second.
Motion by Steve, second by Lori. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, a question to Mr. Landgard on the number of vehicles. I don't remember if we had specified that
You
originally.
didn't specify a number, or the operations committee, when we talked about it, didn't specify. Right now, one special ed vehicle for sure, maybe two, and then two pickups,
The intent is that to happen in '25 then?
hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah, one of the pickups, we might need it sooner than later.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.19, discussion action on high school facility options.
So at the Operations Committee, it was presented, the B3 plan again with more of a breakout. This was included in your packet, so you should have that or have looked at it. The high school option with the addition with the smaller commons was there. That price tag, that was the original B3 plan. That was just under 20 million. The kitchen cafeteria, second story link office, when it's broken out, just that portion is just under 15 million. The north wing improvements, which was LTFM funded, was 4.4, a little higher than that million. Enlarge the IT office, excuse me, workspace, and working on refreshing current science labs, just under 600,000. And then refreshing the existing science space in place, 650,000. So the numbers are there. The difference in this is on the original form that you looked at, there was the $2 million specified for the middle school field. And then there was also the 5 million committed for the ice arena. So those came off to hopefully eliminate some of the confusion. On that sheet, you will notice there was an economy of scales factor, and basically it listed what the economy of scale of doing the project. And for some of them, if you do this in a piecemeal, there's potential of almost $660,000 of increased costs by doing it piecemeal versus a larger project. You can downscale it, you can do something different, or you can drop it at this point and the conversation can go on later. I just need some direction on what you would like me to do, if anything.
Mr. Chairman, a point of clarification, Mr. Landgard, that the 5 million is still allocated as our commitment to the ice arena, just not listed as a.
It's just not listed on this sheet anymore, but it's still, yes,
That's still
designated.
going to come from our original
Yep,
source.
yep.
Okay, thank you. What was the discussion from the Operations Committee? Any recommendations that were?
I sat in for Adam, so we didn't have Adam's opinion, but the rest of us there thought that we wanted to bring it to the full board for discussion again. So, and we didn't talk a lot about it, only that we needed full board discussion.
Right.
Not to speak for, the way I understood it was, part of the discussion was, you know, what could be, I think at one point the question was asked, could this be broken out into different pieces? I think this is, just brings back what those different pieces would be. The larger part of it obviously is the cafeteria, and one thing pushes another, so it becomes a bigger part of the project. The other ones could be broken out and done individually. You could expand the IT office into the library, and that's a standalone type thing, and the other parts are kind of standalone, but that part, you know, is a larger part, and that's the one that has the most push and direction. If you do the cafeteria, you push it out into the lobby, lobby's got to be expanded, and administration moves, so it all, that part kind of all goes together and fits together because it needs to be done at one time, because one thing affects the other. The other three areas, or yeah, the other three areas are independent of each other and wouldn't impact each other. So that's why it's being brought back to see if there's any parts of it that want to move forward or anything that needs to be done or move ahead with, or just leave it all go.
I expressed during the Operations Committee meeting that I'm open to having a conversation on some of these one-off projects, but I'm not keen on having a revote of exactly what we voted on last month.
Well, I continue to have the same approach that I did after the referendum was soundly defeated, that was the indication of pumping the brakes on the project. I know not all the board agrees with that reading of our citizens, but I think that we maybe had a chance to get some of their feedback when we asked for a survey to be filled out, primarily used for us to help get feedback on our new superintendent search. But we had 315 people that took time, appreciate that, to do the survey. And there were a couple of questions I think we should look at as a board. Since it's hard for us to get voter feedback, we got it in this case. There were 68 respondents that took the time to talk about the fiscal transparency. And there was continuously, the answer was the school district is divided about how to fund school operations. Don't spend money foolishly. The community has been upset with spending in the past, must be aware of the tensions involved with previous referendums. There's no common sense spending. Do not spend much of the taxpayers' money. I think that's the messaging that we have to listen to. And I think that we need to be very aware of that. I think we need to move forward with a plan that allows us to evaluate our needs as we move into different leadership into next year. And I don't think we should be afraid of going back with a referendum to our citizens and being able to show our needs. Because in the next question, that it was also a part of this survey, was asked, what do you find as challenges in our district? And 25 times, the words space and overcrowding and need of classrooms at the high school were brought up. But our proposal does not address the classroom space that the citizen talked about in this survey. So I think we have to use this information as important parts of our decision-making. And that's why I do not support any of the suggestions right now, although I very strongly believe in the need to address our cafeteria situation at the high school and then to take security as our next priority in classroom space, that we approach that in 25.
Well, I think it's got to come to a point too. I mean, what are we willing to spend? Are we willing to spend it dry and do nothing for a few years with no funds? Or, yeah, do you want to spend 15 million? Do you want to spend 12 and a half? Do you want to spend 10? What do we want to do? And I'm still a firm believer. I would like, we got the MSBA convention coming up. If anybody's going, maybe get options for a second opinion, a second look at it to see if we are in line with our prices. I don't think we're ready to give up and not do the project, and money is there. We all agree we got to do something, but Matt's also right. I don't want to be afraid of going back to the people and asking for another vote myself.
So any further discussion? You're going to not act on anything, is what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I just feel like we're kicking the can down the road. People know how I feel about this. I mean, I feel like we need, like Adam said, we need, for how much money do we want to spend? We can wait and spend it in the new year or whenever. Inflation's not going to go backwards. I mean, it's going to cost us more to do anything. I looked at the prioritization of the cafeteria kitchen, that second story link, and then for sure the safety piece, which is the office administration, moving those offices. But unfortunately, you can't piecemeal that all together. That's why the 15 million is what it is, to do that all at one time, and that's the most beneficial way to do that in that way. And so that's why I've supported that option. I mean, some of what I feel like I got back from the taxpayers was no new taxes, but we have this money in an assigned account for this very thing. And we've been building that account for a few years now, and I feel like that was the goal of the board, to do something at the high school. We asked to do the whole thing. The voters said, no, we're not gonna do the $33 million project. I heard from some, well then do it yourself. Get it done with the money you have, or do as much as you can with the money you have. And I still believe that today. but I will not bring a motion to the floor, because we did that last month.
So the board will address it, I'm hearing next year? That's what you're hearing, Adam?
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna give up on this by any means. I think we all agree something needs to be done, and it needs to go towards our school buildings.
So we'll let it go back to the future board and decide how to proceed forward, right? That's what the goal is. But I do want to remind you, we do have the money set aside for a project. And it should be done in the near future because it's a need, and the longer it goes, the higher it's gonna go. So I just think we need to move forward fairly quickly, but we'll let the next board decide how to proceed. Any further discussion?
Just one, I think there's some, I was hoping that in with breaking these out and stuff, we would see that some of these projects have merit, and that the employees who work in these areas deserve better, and the students who use these areas deserve better. And I would hope that some action be taken sooner than later to move some of these things forward. The IT department is those working conditions are horrendous. And there's, like I say, there's other things that we could do to help improve the learning aspect for the students and for our staff. So I'd certainly hope that this doesn't get put on a back burner someplace and left to drag out, because number one, it's gonna cost us a lot more. And number two, ultimately, these things are probably gonna get done. I don't see that when we work through a few years now of prioritizing all these things and coming up with this list, it wasn't done by us, it was done by staff and other people giving us input and telling us what they thought they need. So I would certainly hope that the new board would address this sooner than later to get these things done, number one, but number two is to save us as much money by doing it ahead of time instead of waiting until the inflation eats it up more and more. Then we're out asking for more and more money to do the things we could have done a year or two earlier and saved ourselves a lot of money. Same thing as we just voted on for the roofs. The longer we wait on these things, if there are things that need to be done or are gonna get done, let's move them forward and get them done as soon as possible to save us the most amount of money. It's so many times we delay things too long and it costs us way more than what it should have cost us to do it up front and not worry so much about somebody who says, I don't want to pay for it. Well, we're always going to have that. But we got to look at what's best and what we're going to end up doing because it needs to be done and get it done. So just keep that in mind as they move forward, that some decisions are better off made sooner than later and move ahead as quick as possible. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? So hearing none, we will move on to the reports. John?
So, Mr. Wenneke wanted me to remind you that tomorrow morning's the Learning Center breakfast at 7:30, and wanted to make sure board members were aware of the breakfast there. Secondly, Mr. Libdahl gave me an update on the potential project of the watershed moving forward out on the Krausham site. They're actually doing a redesign at this point. There will be an environmental assessment completed, the worksheet completed in February, reporting and permitting application in March, final design and construction documents in March, and bidding in April with hope of construction in June through August. So that was information I needed for the ag folks and the learning lab as well, since they'll be doing some of that. So I need to share that with them as well. And then lastly, I just wanted to take a moment to kind of highlight a couple things related to finances. So back over 20 years ago when I started here on the finances, the budget at that point in time was, and I'm talking general fund, was actually just under $19 million. And the unreserved general fund dollars were roughly 2.5 million. Currently, right now, where things are at, the budget has grown in the general fund to just about $59 million. And the unreserved and assigned fund balance is about $32 million. And the reason I'm bringing this up, well, I better finish going a little further. Since 2010, the school board has approved doing major projects, whether it's parking lots, roofs, or buildings, or athletic facilities, of almost $130 million.
Since when? 2010?
Huh?
Since 2010?
Yeah, starting with the middle school project. Taxpayers are responsible for paying 58 million of that 138 million. The rest is paid off. And the reason I bring this up, and I wanted to bring it up, because Mr. Schneider and Mr. Lorenz are off the board, and Mr. Prinz, and there are a number of past board members who have made decisions to put this district not only in what I call a positive spot with the facilities and grounds, but also financially and the ability to do things. So I just want to say thanks to the folks that are leaving, thanks to those who are on the board and those who have past board members. Because number one, without the trust in the administration of doing the job that's necessary, we wouldn't be in the position we're in right now. And we wouldn't be where we're at right now as a district. And so I just want you to be aware, as board members leaving, I appreciate the trust and support that you put in the administration to do that. I know there's been criticism of transparency. This has all been laid out since 2010. The materials have all been available, so there's been no hidden information or agenda, but that's not the perception. And the perceptions happen. It's unfortunately, like, we hear the terms in the buildings of bullying, harassment, those type of terms are used very loosely and oftentimes are not accurate. So, but again, it's perception. And as much as we try and communicate, if people don't know information, they need to ask. Communication is two ways. And I appreciate, because I've had that with current and past board members, and I just appreciate all the support that I've gotten over the years. So, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, John. Inspectional committee report.
Everything's been covered.
Okay. Operations committee.
This was a very operations-heavy agenda tonight, so I think everything from the meeting last week was covered.
Okay, thank you. Any other reports? Hearing none, we'll go on to any other business.
Yeah, I personally would like to thank Steve and Joel for your time. And I'm just completing my 6th year, and I don't feel like it, but we've had many long and short conversations and meetings, and I've learned a lot from both of you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, the future business, 8.1. Special school board reorganizational meeting is scheduled for January 6th at 7:15 at the district office. Any other business? Hearing none, we'll call the meeting adjourned.